Okay, guys. So today we are going to discuss about the panorama. What is panorama, right? And what are all the general concepts we have? So Panorama is your centralized configuration and management device, which we are going to use to centrally manage your Palo Alto firewalls, your log collectors, and it will be also collecting the logs from these devices to further generate the reports, right? We have central administrators, so you can have your local administrators, right? So this is how it looks like. Uh, just a minute. So let's say this is your panorama device. These are your central administrators. Right? Then let's say this is your firewall. This is your logging device. Okay. So from panorama, you can manage, you can send software update, content update, license update, all your dynamic updates. You can send through it to the devices. You can also send config. You can send config, right? Config template and device group information. To both these firewalls, right? Then on this firewall, you will be having your panorama policy and config, which you are receiving, right? And you will be having a local administrator here who will be doing the local management, and this local administrator will be having a local policy and config. So on the device, if you check, your panorama configuration will be highlighted with the orange color, right? And your local will be in the white color only, right? So we are doing the device administration. We are doing we are pushing these dynamic updates towards the devices. We are pushing the configuration, and we are also receiving the logs from the devices. So let's say your devices are forwarding logs to logger, log collecting device. Both the devices, they are forwarding the logs to the logger, and this logger is sending your device your logs to the panorama device, right? So this is how your log forwarding is there. Or you can directly send your logs from the Palo Alto firewalls to the panorama device. There is no problem. If you don't have logging device, then there is no problem. You can directly send the logs directly to the panorama. So the panorama is doing the device management as well as collecting logs and generating reports. So you can do your central management from one device. So let's say in your network you have 100 firewalls. So it will become really difficult for you to manage all those 100 firewalls, right? Because you need to log in into individual firewall, you need to do the configuration, and it might be possible that all those 100 firewalls, they must be having common configuration. So in that particular case, it will give you the repetitive task to do the same thing. So to eliminate that particular thing, what we do, we push the same configuration on all the devices by using this panorama, and then we can also push this device specific related configuration to those particular devices, and we can create the groups, we can group them so that the individual groups, they can receive their group related policies. So it gives you the granular control over your device management, and it makes your life really easy. I mean, if you want to do one change on 100 devices, so you can do it on the panorama and then you can push it on 100 devices. If you don't have panorama, in that case you need to log in into each 100 device and you need to do that particular change manually, and in that case you need to do the 100 commits in 100 different firewalls. That is a tedious task, right? A simple job can be done from the panorama. So that is the reason we have created this management server, which is helping you out to do bulk task, right? If you want to do the bulk task, your bulk management, and if you want to check if you want to check your entire overall network activity, you need not to log in into each individual firewall, collecting reports from each individual firewall, and then you are generating a combined report. Panorama will do it for you, right? So this is the benefit of the panorama. Virtual appliance, so you can spin your virtual appliance in AWS, right? You can spin it in Google Cloud, you can spin it in Microsoft Azure, and your VMware ESXi, your Hyper-V, right? So you can do that. Your virtual appliance can also support log collection rate up to 10,000 logs per second, right? And supported modes of operation as of 9.9 version, 9.0 version. So we have panorama mode. Uh, Legacy mode is only supported on virtual appliance, right? Then we have management only mode, and the last one is your log collector mode. So we will discuss about them in detail, what are these modes, and what do we do. This is about your virtual appliance. Similarly, we have M series appliance, right? So in M series you have dedicated servers, so they have different specifications. So first one is your M100, which is a very small box, the first starting management server. Then we have M200, then we have M500, and one of the elite one is one M600 with the highest configuration, right? So we have four dedicated hardware appliances for large scale deployment: M100, M200, M500, M600, and they supports greater than 10,000 logs per second, right? And we have one RAID drive to store the firewall logs, and we have another RAID drive to mirror these logs which we are storing inside the RAID drives to protect against the disk failures, right? And we do have SSD to store the logs that panorama and log collectors are generating. And then in this particular chassis we have management ethernet 1, ethernet 2, ethernet 3 interfaces that support 1 gig ps of throughput, right? We do have redundant hot swappable power supplies except for M100, right? Ethernet 4, Ethernet 5 are only supported by M500 and M600 with 1 gig PS throughput, right? So your M100, M200, they have MGMT Ethernet 1, 2, 3, but 500 and 600, they additionally have Ethernet 4 and 5, right? And M600 in management only mode can support up to 5,000 firewalls. So if your panorama mode is management only, and if you're using the M600, then you can support up to 5,000 firewalls, right? So this is the capacity. When we talk about the operational mode, so we have legacy mode. So let's have a discussion on legacy mode. So these are the four operational modes we have. legacy mode, you have panorama mode, you have management only, and then you have log collector mode, right? So in legacy mode, you can receive and store firewall logs without using a local log collector, right? By default, one disk partition will be used for all data, and 11 GB is used for log storage, right? And an addition of up to 8 TB supported on ESXi 5.5 and later, later versions. Expansion of any existing disk is not supported in this mode, right? New deployments of Panorama VMs in 8.1 plus do not support legacy mode, right? So if you are deploying the new VM and if their version is greater than 8.1 plus, then you won't be able to use this particular mode because it is legacy, no longer supported. When you are going to deploy this panorama in HA, so both the panorama receives logs by default, right? You can manage log collectors, but cannot be part of a log collector group. So in this mode, these are the functionalities which you can do. Then in panorama mode, so after PanOS 8.0 plus, we have introduced this particular, starting from PanOS 8.0, Panorama Virtual Appliance can act as M series platform where it can support local log collector functionality as well, right? So this mode uses enhanced indexing feature, that is your elastic search, and it supports third-party log strap, right? Minimum requirement for VM 16 GB, 8 cores, and you should have disk up to 81 GB, or you can have storage disk up to 2 TB, right? So it can support up to 24 TB of log storage with 1 to 12 virtual disk, and initial storage disk must be 22 TB to extend the log storage beyond 2 TB. So addition of multiple disk is supported without losing existing logs, and expansion of existing disk is supported without losing logs, right? So these are the functionalities which have been introduced in your virtual appliance, right? So starting from PanOS 8.0, your Panorama virtual appliance can act as a M series platform, right? So initially this was not supported inside the virtual appliances, but after 8.0 they made this particular change, and now this mode is supported in VM as well. Then we have management only. So starting from PanOS 8.0 8.1, Panorama VM and M series platform supports a new mode which we called management only, right? So it doesn't participate in log collection, as a name suggesting, it doesn't participate in log collection. It needs all the existing firewalls to be part of a log of a collector group and send logs before converting to management only mode. And existing daemons which we use for log collection, or which are involved in logging, so your VLD manager, your Elasticsearch, and your individual VLDs which writes the logs inside the disk, they will not start in this mode, right? And minimum requirement for this is 4 CPUs and 8 GB RAM. Then the logger mode, the last one is your logger mode, and it will behave like a dedicated log collector device. So in that particular case, you will not get any web UI access, you will only have CLI access, and you can do the configuration locally via CLI, or you can do the configuration by another Panorama device who is managing the collectors, right? So what is the benefit of running a Panorama in logger mode is it is going to support higher logging rate than Panorama mode. So this is the only benefit you are going to get. When we talk about the Panorama scalability, so starting from PanOS 9.0, so M600 or sufficiently resourced VM can manage up to 5,000 devices. So if you want to manage 5,000 devices from from a VM device, so what do you need? you need 56 cores of CPU and 128 GB of RAM. So this is what required to manage 5,000 devices from a VM machine. And your operational mode must be only manager only. It cannot be anything else, right? So recommends enabling use Panorama data for predefined reports, because otherwise it will crash your Panorama. So we have the predefined templates which we will be using to generate the resource, so that we can reduce the heavy resource utilization on this particular box, because although you are going to manage up to 5,000 devices. So if you want to see this particular setting, you can go to Panorama, you can go to Panorama tab, go to setup, go to management, and here you will see reporting and logging. Right? And if you see log export and reporting, so you will see log export and record, log export and reporting, number of version for config audit, right? Maximum rows. So this is the predefined values, right? You can use these values, or you can alter the value, but it will depend upon the current usage. And you can go for this particular option, use Panorama data for predefined reports, right? So you need to opt for this option, so that it can save your it is going to reduce the load on this Panorama device, because now you are managing so many devices, and if you want to generate anything related to device, then it is highly recommended to use this option. And then you have your predefined reports. So these are your predefined reports which are going to contain these informations. So you can select anything, you can deselect all of them, you can select all, or you can make custom if you want. Okay, so then inside your hardware appliances, right? So only M600 can support up to 5,000 firewalls, and that too, it is running inside the management mode only. And rest of the things will be like other M series boxes. They won't be able to manage 5,000 devices. You can do it with the help of the VM, but you need to make sure that your VM is a big machine. It should have 56 cores, and it should have at least 128 gig of RAM, right? If you have spin up your VM, and if you want to do the conversion from these modes, so how can you do it? So it will be like this. You have Panorama mode, you have management only, you have logger, and you have legacy.
Recording, sir.
Okay, so we have these different system modes, right? And you can switch from any one of them, right? So your minimum resource requirement for Panorama mode is 8 CPUs and 16 GB of RAM, right? For logger, your minimum resource requirement is 8 CPU and 16 GBs of RAM, right? Then management only, 4 CPUs and 8 GBs of RAM. When we talk about legacy, so 1 CPU and 1 GB of RAM. Now, if you want to convert your mode from legacy to Panorama, so you can do it, there is no problem. But if you met minimum resource requirement, this particular thing, if your system is going to meet these requirements, then you can change your mode from legacy to Panorama. From Panorama, you can change your mode to management only anytime. You can change your mode to logger anytime. There is no restriction. Similarly, from management, you can change to Panorama, but if you meet or if you met minimum resource requirement, right? But from logger and Panorama, you can change your modes anytime because they have the same minimum resource requirement. Anytime, anytime. From legacy, if you want to go to management, then again, if you met minimum resource requirement, right? So this is the chart which you can jump in from one mode to another mode. So you can see your legacy has very minimum requirement and it can easily spin up in your environment, right? But nobody used this particular mode nowadays. Either they will be using Panorama, they will be using management only, or they will be using logger. I mean, their Panorama is behaving like a logger and dedicatedly collecting the logs, right? Then if I talk about the daemons associated with the Panorama in your management plane, so we have ES monitor. So ES monitor is your daemon which is going to monitor Elasticsearch instance. So it is going to monitor the Elasticsearch instance health on the node. So your main daemon is Elasticsearch. So it is going to monitor Elasticsearch instance health on the node. Then we have logd. So logd going to receive logs and going to ship it to the VLDs to write it on the disk. Then we have MongoDB. So MongoDB mainly responsible to cache the results from the objects tab, policy tabs, right? Then we have ReportD. So ReportD is going to process, your query related to reportings, and it is going to generate the reports when user is trying to extract the report. Then we have VLD manager. So VLD manager is the process which is going to manage your individual VLDs. Then we have backend CMS. So this process is responsible for servicing request and response from Panorama Web UI. This particular web backend CMS. So whatever request and responses you are getting from Panorama Web UI, you are getting it from this particular process. Then similarly, we have web backend context. So you do context switching from the Panorama. So that particular request and responses coming from this particular process. So when you do context switching, you go to Panorama. From here, you can jump into your any device, right? So this context switching is taken care by this particular web backend CTX and web backend CMS for web UI request and responses. And after 9.0, I told you before as well that they have introduced HTTPD for web management, right? Then we have also discussed about the common ports or the important ports which we can use, which your Panorama is going to use, right? So your ES monitor, report D, correlation D, your log D, your user ID, config D, they all are going to connect to the management server on port number 10,000. This is the first thing. Then your inter-daemon communication with the system D, that is going to be on port number 28260, right? and your interlock collector communication to the management server will be done on port number 28270, right? All clients and log collectors, they connect to management server on port number 3978. These are the important port numbers which you need to take care. Your MongoDB talks to config D, report D, HTTP D over port number 27017 and to correlation D over 27150. So your MongoDB, that is your database. So it is going to communicate with config D, report D, HTTP D over these ports and with correlation D over this port. Your Java this Elasticsearch listens on port number 9200, fed the data by individual VLD disk, right? Your event manager handles the messages between processes, management server, config D, correlation D, log D, report D, and user D, right? So these are the important port numbers which you need to take care of it. So all these daemons, when they directly communicate with management server, they communicate on port number 10,000. With system D, they communicate on 28260, right? Inter LC communication over 28270 to management server. Firewall and log collector communicate to management on 3978, right? Your MongoDB is going to talk with config D, report D, HTTP D over 27017, and with correlation D talks on 27150, right? Then we have Elasticsearch. So it is Java Elasticsearch is going to communicate over 9200. If you want to see, if you want to see the connections from the management server, so you can run this command debug management server connection. So it will give you the details about the current management server connections. Okay. Then network segmentation. If we talk about the network segmentation, so let's say this is your panorama, right? This is one of the location. This is another location, right? So let's say we have, let me just complete this. So let's say we have firewalls here. There are multiple firewalls in this. You can say it is a region, right? And within that region, you have multiple firewalls, PA1, PA2, and so on, right? You have log collectors in this region, right? So you can use AWS service, right? And you have spin up the panorama in logger mode and they are collecting the logs, or you can have physical boxes, right? And they are connected on Ethernet 4 and 5 port number, and they are doing the log collection from these firewalls, right? Similarly, you have same setup, that is your backup data center. So log collector, let's say we are talking about the data center only, right? And then they are collecting the logs from the firewall. We have multiple firewalls here, right? So now You are managing your log collectors. So this management port is connected with the Ethernet 4 port of the Panorama, right? So this Ethernet 4 will be used to do management and log query traffic, right? Then we have Ethernet 1. So it is going to handle only management traffic of these firewalls. Okay. And similarly, same thing here, you have defined your Ethernet 2 to handle only management traffic of these firewalls, and Ethernet 5 to manage and do the log query traffic, right? So which box has this much number of Ethernet ports? So either your M500 or your M600, because that is going to have Ethernet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? M100 and M200, they only have Ethernet 1, 2, and 3. That's it. Then you have your management port of the Panorama, which your central administrators, they are using to communicate, right? And it is also communicating with Palo Alto Networks update servers. So it is fetching the updates from the servers and then pushing those updates to your devices, right? So device management and device log collection, it's being done. Your collector group communication is being done by the Panorama. Your device deployment is being done by the Panorama. So inside device management and device log collection, what we are doing, we are managing the firewalls, we are managing the log collectors, we are managing the wildfire appliances and appliance clusters. Okay. So multiple interfaces can take part in this service. Then collector group communication. So we are using this for communication between log collectors, and only one interface can take part in this particular service. Then we have device deployment. So to deploy software update, content update, to manage devices, right? So we can use one interface to do this particular task as well. Any doubt, anyone? Another important thing is, you know, so communication between your Panorama log collectors, managed firewalls, they uses wide range of ports, right? So for HA connectivity and synchronization, so if you want to communicate securely, you will use port number 28, right? Otherwise, if encryption is not there, then you will use 28769, right? And between Panorama and managed firewalls, so Panorama will connect on management server on 3978, right? Or for dynamic updates, it will communicate on 28443. Between Panorama and log collector, so it communicates on the same port 3978, right? Log collector to log collector. So each log collector initiates a connection to other log collector in the group, and they communicate on 28270 for distributing blocks. So these are the important ports which you need to take care in your mind, which will help you to troubleshoot the problems and isolate the problems in big infrastructures, right? So these cases are not that easy to understand or are not that easy to troubleshoot. So like this is what I was referring. I know my environment, right? I have designed it. I know everything, that how my packet is going to flow and all that. Now just imagine if you get case like that, how you are going to do the troubleshooting. You are, that particular topology is totally new to you. You're not familiar with Juniper. You are not having hands-on experience on BGP, right? And if they says that rest of the things are working, now I'm only facing flapping issue, BGP flapping issue. Then how you are going to do the troubleshooting in that case inside the VSys? So these are the scenarios, right? Difficult scenarios which you can get and you need to, you know, do the troubleshooting and provide the resolution. So this is just the overview about the panorama. If you go to the device, so this is the panorama device. This is how it looks like. Initially, you will only see dashboard, application command center, monitor tab, and panorama tab. These four tabs, policies, objects, network, and device, they will be available once you have onboarded the device. So if you go to panorama, go to manage devices summary. So you can see I have onboarded 3 devices basis on the serial number. So you can click on add, you can provide the serial number of the device, and inside the device, you can go to device and setup, and you can share your panorama server details. So this is how initially we establish the connection between the firewall and the panorama, right? So here you can provide your panorama server IP, and here you can add the device serial number, and then they will start communicating on port number 3978. So your TCP connection will be established. So within your topology, if between firewall and the panorama, there is another firewall or any another proxy device which is blocking your 3978 port, so your connection will never come up. So you need to make sure that TCP 3978 connection is open and both the devices are connected, right? You can take the management connection details and you can check whether 3978 TCP connection is established or not. Then you create template stacks, device groups. So we will discuss this tomorrow. And once you do this, these 4 tabs will be visible to you: policy, objects, network, device, right? So that's it for today. And going forward, we will explore more options. It is similar to your panorama GUI only. It is just that now we have got 2 new concepts: device group and template. So we need to first understand the background behind the device group and template, and then only we will proceed further.